is the French team gonna crush every single other team there is at the Overwatch World Cup 2018. That is why you clicked on this video, and that is what I'm gonna tell you today. The reason why this is gonna happen. I'm gonna try to be as concise as possible and to give as little details as I can, but I have to give a little ground basis on why they will win, and the reasons have to be explained a little bit in details. So even though this video will be a little bit long, I wish you guys stay until the end, because there will be a lot of arguments that will be developed in this video, and I would really love to see you all respond in the commentaries and to tell me what you think about this and why am I right or am I wrong. So now that this is said, we can begin the real analysis. So instead of just comparing each players one by one on each team and saying which team is better just because they have more stars and more talent, and instead of being the biased person who insults everyone that say that their country sucks, I will try to give an unbiased opinion, but also an opinion that has good arguments, and the arguments are based on pro players' thought and on a deep understanding of the meta, I think. In order to tell you why France will win the World Cup, I need first to compare all the teams with the meta. The meta right now, if it hasn't changed so much from all the qualifiers, is the GOATS comp. The GOATS comp is the best comp there is, and one way to prove you this is the match between Finland and South Korea. On paper, if you compare both teams, South Korea has more talent, they have more stars. Most of the players have been playing together for the NYXL roster, so they should be more coordinated. On paper, South Korea should crush Finland totally. And yet, Finland was able to win 2 maps out of 3, and to have such a close 5th map that we all thought they would win. How did they do this? Well, if you look at the maps they managed to win, Finland won 2 maps, the 2 tank-heavy maps. Meaning that the maps in which they played GOATS, and that GOATS was good in them, South Korea was not able to counter them and lost against them. And yet, why did South Korea lose against Finland during 2 maps? Because South Korea didn't play GOATS. South Korea played an anti-GOAT style, based on Hammonds and a lot of DPS that makes a lot of damage, such as Pharah, Junkrat, and Doomfist, in order to try to counter GOATS. South Korea, which supposedly should crush Finland, wasn't able to counter them on the GOATS comp. And yet, Finland isn't the best GOATS comp there is. Like, they're a decent team, but they're not even an Overwatch League team. They have Overwatch League caliber players, but that doesn't mean they are Overwatch League level. They don't have much coordination, they're not the best team, and they don't have that much talent. So the only reason why they were able to win 2 maps against South Korea is because GOATS is so strong. And this is something that most pro players have said. GOATS, it is so hard to counter. Which means that it's not impossible, but in order to counter GOATS, you have to make no mistake at all. Which means that only the best teams could eventually be able to counter GOATS. I want to consider the South Korean team the best anti-GOATS there is. What I mean by that is, I think that within the teams that do not play the GOATS, which are South Korea, Canada, and USA, I think they are the best anti-GOATs, or at least at the time when they played against Finland, they were the best anti-GOATs. If even the best anti-GOATs team isn't able to counter a decent GOATS comp, then that means that this comp is so strong. If you manage to perfect the comp, no one can stop you. No one. To do my ranking, as you've already heard, I didn't consider the Australian team, the English team, and the Chinese team within the ranking, because I think that none of them have a decent chance of winning the World Cup, so I will only consider the 5 other teams. I'll consider the only 2 teams that play GOATS within the 5 that could win it. You have Finland and France. From pro players' interviews, and from what I have tried to discover, it is something that is almost sure that France plays a better GOATS than the Finland team. Why? Because GOATS is a comp that was a lot played in the European contenders, and that isn't played much elsewhere. If you see, even USA and Canada don't play the GOATs, even though it is the best comp there is in this meta. Which means that the European teams have a better chance, I mean, to master the comp. Also, the best team in Europe was Eagle Gaming, which is a French team, which is now no longer a team because the association broke down, but it's not something we will go into. But what that means is the best team to play GOATs was the Eagle Gaming team. And the French roster trained with the Eagle Gaming team. During 1 month, I think, they played in Scrim against Eagle Gaming, and they tried all the comp to counter the GOATs. They never managed to do it. Eagle Gaming always found a way to come back, to adapt the GOATs in order to counter the comp that was supposed to counter GOATs. What that means is, first, the GOATs is the best comp there is. Second, Eagle Gaming was the best team at the GOATs comp. And Team France played with them, scrimmed with them, and learned from them. If you see, there is Nico GDH, which is a former Eagle Gaming player, which will now be playing on the Paris Overwatch League team, which is playing with the French roster. This gives a lot of GOATs experience to the French team. All this means that France have a high experience, heavy GOATs team, and this is why I think that they have the best GOATs team in the world, at least at the World Cup. Now that we know this, let's consider all the matches that the French roster will have to face. First, they will play against Canada. So, Canada doesn't play the GOATs much. They sometimes try to adapt the 3 tanks, but they mostly play some anti-GOATs / weird composition that worked decent in the qualifiers. They lost against USA in a not so close match, but it's because USA have a very, very good coach this year, and I think their team this year is one of the best. But still, they did decent in their qualifiers, but not that great. And I think, even though they did decent, they won't be able to counter the French roster's GOATs because they don't have the ability. If you want to counter GOATs, you have to be so good at anti-GOATs that you make no mistake, and that's not what they did. They have XQC as tank, which is not a pro player anymore, and which didn't do that well during the qualifiers. They also have some non-Overwatch League players on their roster, so I don't think they will be able to counter the French roster's GOATs. Next, in the semi-finals, as I excluded China, I think that the Finland roster will be able to move to the semi-finals, and as I proved earlier, the Finland roster has a less good GOATs than the French one has, which means that the French should, on paper, of course, win the semi-final. So, for what I said and what I suspect, on paper, the French team should move to the finals. In the finals, they will meet the winner between the USA and the South Korean team in the semi-finals. What this means is they will face the best anti-GOATs comp there is, and the finals. It will be one of the most epic matches there will be in Overwatch World Cup, I think. And a very interesting match about within the meta is uncounterable, or can we find a way to counter the GOATs? What this means is the best GOATs team will fight the best anti-GOATs team. And from what I've seen so far, and I've told you so far, GOATs gives advantage. If you play GOATs, you have an advantage against an anti-GOATs team. Even though they could win against you, as you're playing the meta, as you're playing the strongest team, you have the advantage. And that is why I think that France will win in the finals of the Overwatch World Cup 2018 against South Korea or USA. Now, I know that some people will tell me, yes, but South Korea is South Korea. They're a powerhouse. Yes, they're a powerhouse, but they don't play the GOATs. So they have this disadvantage, but also they have been having a lack of training lately, as I think it was Fury, which is still in UK, Fate still in the US, so they have a lot of ping, etc. They will only have 3 days of full practice. So this year's South Korea is weaker than any other year. And I think USA has a chance to beat them, but I think that France has an even bigger chance to beat them and to win the World Cup. I tried to be as unbiased as possible during the video, but one thing has to be said. I am a French fan. Come on French, avec le 6, allez les Français, allez le. I want them to win. I actually think they will win from the unbiased point of view, but I wish so hard they could win. And that is why I am giving this message to the whole community. Come on community, stand up for your team, stand for the blue, avec le 6, allez les gars. Be there, be with your players. Come on, encouragez-les, soyez avec eux. Je vous envoie ce message, s'il vous plaît, faites votre possible pour qu'ils gagnent. Hashtag avec le 6.